Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We're super excited to be here. I think I would be remiss if I didn't say from Locality and Moroch, our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers are with everybody in Los Angeles right now. So need to say that to get started. But anyways, my name is Albin. I'm the Vice President of Sales for the Central Region for Locality. Locality is not a new company. We just have a new name. You might have known us in the past as Cox Reps and Gamut Media. We have rebranded as Locality because we really focus on that local consumer, and that's who we are and that's what we do. So we are the leader in local video. We have over 400 broadcast stations, and we have direct access to over 150 streaming pubs that we make available to our clients and our advertisers. In addition to that, we've really spent a lot of time over the last year innovating so that we can meet the needs of our clients and agencies. We went from a mostly 100% managed service business to now offering a programmatic option through PMPs or deal IDs. And now we have some omni-channel offerings, a converged product, and Locality Studios. Lots of things going on with Locality, so please go to our website, DM me if you want to learn any more about it. So I am super excited to be here with Lauren Anselmo, who works for Moroch. Moroch is a Dallas-based independent agency, and they run the gamut of strategy, media planning, media buying, business insights, full creative execution department. So they do a little bit of everything. Their client list includes local advertisers, regional advertisers, national advertisers, and multi-unit channels. So without further ado, Lauren Anselmo.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Lauren Anselmo. So what I do at Moroch specifically is oversee both the site direct and programmatic media buying teams. So I sit within the digital company of the larger agency and oversee both of the practices of media execution, planning, reporting, analytics, and all of that great stuff. And I'm very excited to be here. So thank you so much.
Thanks. So one of the things we want to talk today about is Moroch has a unique strategy of how they approach local for planning and audience and buying. And so I really wanted Lauren to kind of talk about how Moroch looks at local differently.
Yeah. So at Moroch, we truly believe that local changes everything. We take an approach that we call upthinking. And really what that means is a bottom-up approach. So we look at what's happening on the ground in a market and look at the micro before looking at the macro. And we actually go in and plan media strategies on a market-by-market basis, depending on what those local nuances are. So what that does is fit brands to markets instead of fitting markets to brands. And really consider local nuance and perspective in those markets first to really understand the people that are there, the audiences, the culture that is there, and the community that is there. And what this does is help us create hyper relevancy around brands first before we kind of take a step back and fit that into a larger strategy. There's a couple of products. There's several products we have that help us do that. One of which is a local trade area product that really helps us find those hard to reach audiences in very, very niche places down to the zip code level or even down to very specific neighborhoods within a market. We also have proprietary research solutions such as Pulse that help us develop questionnaires that we go into market with first to understand what those audiences are and what the brand perceptions are that help us then craft those local strategies. So it's a very different type of approach, I think, but we've been around for 40 years and work with really big brands that then allow us to go into those markets and find the people that make sense.
It's fantastic. So kind of talking about local nuances and understanding that where you live impacts purchase behaviors, your brand preferences, consumption habits, and understanding that in our business there's this large amount of fragmentation out there, right? So what are some audience-first strategies that you use or Moroch uses to find your consumers across these multiple markets and multiple channels?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing about fragmentation these days is that you have to be flexible and you have to be able to find where people are. They say that, app hopping is the new channel surfing when it comes to, streaming TV and all of that. So, people are no longer loyal to apps. They're loyal to shows and they're going to follow those around. So, what we do at Moroch is we choose partners and platforms that really allow us to reach a variety of different content, a variety of different streaming apps, and the ability to scale locally as well is very important. So partners and platforms that have that reach, which when you're looking at a variety of different content, it's important that you do show up there to extend that reach, not just focusing on one specific type of app or content or show, but really just finding where that consumer is and what they're watching. So, we follow the app hopper that puts us at the right place at the right time in terms of where that person is in the streaming ecosystem, and a mix of the different types of content such as AVOD, fast, premium streaming, your Prime, your HBOs, all of that good stuff. And the ability to buy that as a bundle creates a lot of efficiency when you're doing it at the local level. The ability to auto-optimize across all of those different types of content is really important to us. And we just find that it creates a lot more impact, both from a reach and frequency perspective, when you're spreading yourself across those different types of things.
Perfect. I'm going to kind of take a step back and mention something that we've recently done at Locality. We did a study. It's called the Local Lift, and it was in conjunction with the Harris Poll. And the study was really designed to measure the efficacy of local video, really compared to national. And I think we all just intuitively know that consumers differ by market. So I'm a mom from Dallas, Texas. I'm going to be different than a mom, maybe say in Manhattan. So obviously, targeting the audiences differently by market, we know you need to do that. But what came out of this study that was really interesting was that utilizing more local content in your creative yield like major benefits for the brand. And so it allowed them to sort of boost more engagement through relevance. It created more of a kind of a community feel, which led to a higher trust in the brand and really drives purchase consideration. So in addition to sort of understanding targeting locally consumers different by market, really the creative is very important as well. So knowing that these consumption patterns change in multiple markets, like how are you addressing this in your brand storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with creative. So, I mean, what we're really talking about is messaging and how you're speaking to consumers once you're in their market. You have to understand the local culture. You have to know what are those popular sayings, the expressions, the colloquialisms that make that market unique and that are going to resonate with the people that are there. And once you're able to infuse a brand into someone's culture, then you become a part of their community. And that's when you're going to start to see those brand metrics rise, like you guys saw in your Local Lift report. One of the ways that we do that is by, going into those communities and using real stories. Use real people, use people that are actually there. And that's going to create a lot more credibility and relatability to the brand at that local community level. Another thing that we're really big on is multicultural. And making sure that we're leveraging partners and audience strategy, targeting options that allow us to integrate with multicultural opportunities within the market. An example of this would be working with something like Canela TV. That is, one of the leading Spanish-speaking streaming TV apps out there this day, and having a presence there in markets where it makes sense allows us to really show up in content that could be in language, could be in English, but allows us to have that, just that deeper connection, I would say. And going kind of back to messaging, and along the lines of the Spanish language, to your point, a Spanish-speaking consumer looks different in Texas, they look different in California, they look different in Nevada, and making sure that we're speaking the right dialect in our messaging, we're using the right kind of cultural references in our messaging is very, very important. So the multicultural aspect for sure is something that we lean heavily into.
Great. So we are at CES, so I definitely have to bring up emerging tech. I know you're a big fan of AI, so can you just talk to us about what you're doing with regards to enhancing the way that your brands are talking to people through emerging technology or artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I was on show site yesterday at the convention center and my mind was blown with what's going on with AI right now, absolutely. So I feel like what I'm about to talk about is just scratching the surface with what's actually going on right now. But AI is here, it's here to stay, and it's important to us in the ways that we leverage that as an agency. One of those ways is to have that technology enable us to use really precise call to actions and use location data to personalize the messaging and the incentives that we're putting into the market. We've done this with a QSR client and found that when we're actually telling someone how close they are to a specific location with a very specific offer that again is very relevant to them, we tend to see about a 25% lift in store traffic, which is really huge for those brand metrics. Outside of that, one of the things that I'm really excited about in the streaming TV space is the evolution of contextual with how AI is really unlocking the ability to do a lot better contextual targeting, analyzing the metadata of different shows, and being able to actually read what products are in that show, and then cultivating ads that show up that advertise those products to kind of create that halo effect around what someone has just watched. Max actually just came out with a couple of products around that in regards to shoppable ads, where it's kind of this product carousel, and after a consumer watches a show, they're able to actually have a kind of a carousel of what those products are, and the ability to then use the remote, click into it, drive to a microsite, or have a QR code or something like that. So it's unlocking more relevance, but also interactivity and engagement. And that's so important to go beyond that sort of passive viewing experience. So I'm really excited about what AI and that sort of technology can do for us from that sort of product targeting perspective.
It's amazing what's happening right now. So switching gears a little bit, sort of recognizing that agencies have always been siloed, right? You've got your traditional team, you've got your digital team. So talk to me about how Moroch has really sort of changed the way that you're servicing your clients, and basically how your staff is working now.
Yeah, this is actually really cool. And I hadn't seen this before I joined Moroch a couple of years ago, but what we've done is actually integrate our linear buyers into the digital practice. And that's taken a lot of training and education and learning across that team. But what that has allowed us to do is be agnostic in our buying approach. So, it's not linear versus digital or streaming. Like, we believe in both, and there is value to both. So it's really allowed us to be supercharged in the way that we analyze consumption, and doing so on a market-by-market basis to plan the appropriate linear and digital strategy within a market, and then have a buyer who is knowledgeable and versed in both practices to be able to make those recommendations. So, the ability to optimize between channels, and that perspective, and just be really flexible and be able to pivot quickly, it's really changed the way that we work, in a really good way.
And you told me before that you have some of your best practices.
I do, yes. Yeah, kind of from a campaign approach, I would say. What we're doing as a team are three different things. I think three different kind of practices that we have when it comes to local. And, the first one is, do not copy paste your campaigns. You cannot take a Dallas campaign and assign it to Houston. That's not how it works. So with local, there's really no one size fits all approach. Local is unique, and with our upthink mindset, we are constantly analyzing what is going on in that market to be able to craft those very specific market by market strategies. And one of which is, another practice is to account for over and underrepresented audiences within a market. So, you may think that a certain amount of spend, or a certain level of reach and frequency is appropriate based on a total market size, but when you're really analyzing that audience first, in terms of what is going on locally and who that audience composition is, you may find that your spend and your reach and frequency levels need to be adjusted based on the audience that is actually there. And then, when it comes to measurement, obviously we can't have a chat without talking about measurement. So what's become really paramount to us is measuring reach and frequency, and the incrementality of digital versus linear when we do have both within a market. And again, being able to prove out the value of both, being able to say, okay, linear makes sense for this, but we want to reach net new people. And with you guys, being able to do that all the way down to the zip code level has been like truly monumental in the way that we're able to provide our clients with really solid performance, and be able to adjust on a quarter by quarter basis, kind of like what that benchmark is for incrementality across the two, and make sure that we're constantly finding that sweet spot between those channels.
You took the words out of my mouth. She's always like, Lauren, what's the sweet spot for incrementality?
Yep.
So we have been able to work. We work with iSpot that allows us to measure that incrementality across all of these markets for their clients. And I think that is something that's been a big driver in some of the growth of the business that we've been able to work on, and being able to analyze that quarter over quarter and kind of come up with the correct benchmarks, and by market, right? It's different, as we've been talking about all day. Okay, so now we're going to kind of pivot a little bit to brand storytelling and creative. So the question came up, what impact does your localized content and ad strategies have on the brand's KPIs compared to like a more national campaign?
Yeah. We work with national brands. We do. It's just that our approach to strategy is at the local level. So, what impact we've seen between the two, I would say, is three things: targeted reach, flexibility, and efficiency. So local is going to be able to give you that targeted reach in very specific areas. So that's going to increase your penetration in the market. It's not to say that a national brand message that is, just geo-targeting the entire US can't do that. But we definitely find more impact when we are localizing that message and when we are localizing our audience targeting strategies. So more targeted reach for sure. Flexibility is huge with local. If there's something going on in market where we need to quickly change our messaging because of what's going on in that market and make sure that the brand's voice is appropriate for what is going on, if you're planning your media market by market, you can quickly do that. With a national approach, I think it's less turnkey. Because that message is everywhere, not just in one specific market. Sure. So, quicker responses to events and trends, for sure. And then efficiency. Local may seem more expensive initially, if you're looking at it from like a CPM perspective and, having to pay a little bit more of a premium for that really targeted reach that I was talking about. But at the end of the day, we're focusing our resources a lot more distinctly and specifically. So we definitely find that it, in the long term, opens up more ROI and drives more return for our clients, even though, from a pricing perspective, might be a little bit more costlier initially. So overall, a broad campaign is going to give you broad visibility, and that's great. Every brand needs that. But a local campaign is going to give you very focused presence, higher return, and in the long run will reduce your cost per acquisition metrics. So a lot of what I'm saying, I think, echoes what you guys found in your local lift study, in terms of really driving that longer term brand value and return by a localized media strategy, and that's what we see.
So have you found with some of your national advertisers, when you kind of talk to them about kind of both strategies, are they receptive if they've been, traditionally buying nationally, but then they kind of understand why they might need to heavy up in local and specific markets or whatever? They kind of are taking your lead and understanding that. Yeah,
and I think they do. I think, we definitely get questions, and that's fair. But I think that, we also have a test and learn mentality and a test and learn approach. And I think once they start to understand the nuance that we add to our market strategies, that it unlocks more open-mindedness about it. So,
okay, great. So one of the things that Locality has done this week, I don't know if anyone saw, I'm sorry. 2 days ago, there was a press release on Locality Studios. So we just launched, it's a full service studio dedicated to custom local advertising, and it provides our partners, our brands, and our agencies with localized content production, local in-show integrations. I had mentioned that we have access to over 400 linear stations, and so it allows us to kind of go in and do some integrations with, say, for example, in Dallas, it's Good Morning Texas. So we can do that as well with Locality Studios. But lastly, it allows us to do some kind of custom creative solutions, utilizing AI, helping with dynamic creative optimization. And so we work together with Moroch to launch Locality Studios. It just came out. I'm sure you can find it in the press. So why don't we talk a little bit about what we did for a national gym franchise for you guys, and how it's worked, and just your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this. What we did is took a couple of our markets for our gym franchise client, and through Locality's partnerships with local TV networks, we're able to leverage their production teams and talent to then go to gym locations in market and film longer form content. So, 4 to 5 minute segments on what makes those gyms unique, what the equipment is like, any special offers that they have, things like that. And that sort of content is really great for longer form, because a 15 or 30 second spot doesn't have time for that. So, our regular spots in market will focus on a very specific offer typically. But these longer form just really kind of elevate the storytelling about what makes those gyms special, and how they're tied into that community. With Locality Studios, you guys have been so fundamental in being able to give us ideas on what types of taglines we should use, what types of imagery and shots, and What are the ideas for the actual long form content, and being able to leverage your team for those sort of ideas, as well as the production, just creates so much efficiency if, the budget is shorter and we can't cut more spots. Sure. Because then we can use the longer form content to cut the shorter 6-second, 15-second, 60-second, and the brand owns this content.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The cool part of it is the brand owns the content, so they can use it how they want. They can put it on their channels, and it's theirs forever. So really exciting. Yeah. Couple days old with the press release, but please check it out. Lots going on at Locality and lots going on at Moroch, and we're so grateful for our partnership, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us. Does anyone have questions?
You mentioned about national clients focusing dollars in local markets, and you've been able to help them do that. Are there particular motivating factors, issues in their business that you've found are more powerful reasons for them, or more motivating reasons for them to invest dollars locally?
That is a great question. I would say that market penetration can be difficult to measure and really get a read on, especially if you're only doing, a national type of campaign and a national approach. So, I think that what we find is if a brand is looking to be able, or if they want to measure more penetration across audiences in in different markets comparative to one another, I think that is a motivating factor, because otherwise there's no way to get a read on what impact you're making in one market versus the other. So I think being able to measure, store sales, store traffic, foot traffic, and things like that on a comparative basis is something that we find.
And I think too, just thinking about nationally, on the linear side, right, you're buying a spot in GMA and it's running in all 210 DMAs. But on the streaming side, it doesn't work that way, right? Impressions will fall in the larger markets organically because there's a higher population of streaming, and so there will just naturally be pockets of the country that aren't getting as much coverage, right? So that you can utilize, even for national brands, you can go in and find those underrepresented markets and fill in with local buys to help just make sure you get full coverage, or you can utilize it on the flip side to say, hey, we're doing a national campaign, but we need lift and we're having trouble in these 5 markets. So let's go in and let's buy those locally so that we can make sure we get additional coverage there. So I guess just different ways that you can look at it.
All right. That was fantastic. I've always loved how Moroch has been a hyper-local messaging for its brand and advertisers, and I love it whenever new technology comes in. So round of applause for our panel here. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.